Hello, it's Andrew, and we're back for part 3 of our recreation of Mega-lo-Mania in Unreal Engine 4. So we've just loaded up the project, and we can see that we're looking at a level. Now yesterday we managed to get our little man blueprint and the associated animation displaying in our world, and if we press play and press space, which I attached to the or listen to the event for to spawn the man, it doesn't spawn anything. Now that's because we're actually looking at the default level, not what we've named default 2. So if we switch over to default 2, hopefully our little man is in this level instead. Now we can change what default level our game starts with in the project settings, and somewhere in here it will tell us which default level is. Search for level, and okay, level did not work. Default maps, nope. There is a lot of default options. Okay, I can't quite remember where it was, but somewhere in the settings, and we'll find it perhaps a little later. We can tell it which level should be the one that's loaded first. Perhaps it's not in the settings, but that's quite important when we've got all the other components of our game done, the main menus, the level selection, things like that. It'll be important to load up the right one. For the time being, we know which one it's showing, we know we had to split to it. So I'm running a little bit late today, so we're going to have a somewhat of a shorter stream tonight. We're going to try and work on the main kind of in-game screen, mainly because it consists of multiple components, and it'll be good to prototype those, make sure that we can get all the bits and pieces in right, get all the sprites required. So within the original game, we're going to just jump straight into our first level, and that will give us an idea of what we're doing. So we're going to actually create a new level. We'll leave the default level 2, which is the one which spawns our person, in place, and we can use that moving forwards to prototype other things as required. So we're going to create a new level, and we can either start with a default level. Oh, okay, just clicking on that works. Let's start again. We can create a default level, a VR basic, or an empty level, because we don't need this land space, the sky map, or any of the other components. We'll start with an empty level, and it's completely blank. Now if we go back to the game consists of probably about 3 key components. We have the minimap component in the top left, which we could say includes the shields for the individual players of that particular map, and the speed control. It consists of the research, tech tree, building, kind of everything else menu system. Most of the game interaction is actually done with this menu down here. As you progress through the levels, through the worlds or the epochs, it opens up various sections in here, like science lab, research stuff, factories, other mining or resource gathering processors. The shield gives you statuses of the buildings you have and is used to help repair them, and obviously the sword is used to create and deploy the armies. And then you've got the main kind of map area, which displays all the buildings you have on a particular island space, and shows the little people units if they're deployed. One thing that we know is that you can mix the different unit types or army types, and yeah, so I think it refers to them as armies. So a full deployment of people would be an army, but you can mix them, and we have apparently 44 army men, what they call unarmed man, in there, but it's evident we don't have 44 little men walking around, so we'll have to account for that moving forwards. Now, right clicking in there seems to be a bit unreliable, but we got our people back. So they're the kind of three components we're going to focus on. Now we do have some of the images still, so if we drop back down to the desktop where we stored the images, we have this features bitmap, sorry, PNG texture as it's going to become in Unreal Engine, which contains various pieces that help create our island. And then we have our, what they've called a slab, which is our island area, and then we have the whole set of icons which we've already got included in our Unreal Engine with all the other bits and pieces that we'll need. So these are going to be the components for the icons used for the army, the tech tree, the research, the mining, etc. The slab used for the main area on the right hand side, and along with the features to give the island that look. And then we'll use the small map components to actually create the mini map in the top left hand corner. So we'll start with this big space here and the bits and pieces that are associated with that. We're going to have to first drop in our camera to give us that initial view. So we'll take a standard camera. Now we're working actually on a 2D space in a 3D viewport, so it's important that we get our camera to face the right direction so that when we move things around in our 2D space, the X and Y coordinates would typically be correct. Now, as is mentioned in previous videos, Unreal actually uses the Y to indicate kind of depth, I believe that's the case, rather than the Y to indicate up and down. So we can see within our 3D viewport, we can see faintly at the bottom the grid that represents kind of just a representation of this 3D space. Otherwise it would just be a big black box, kind of like it is in our camera actor in this little picture-in-picture. So the grid at the bottom gives us some idea of which direction things are, and we can see that the blue arrow, which represents the Z location, is actually the up and down kind of direction, whereas the Y is actually our left and right from this kind of perspective. And so that's because Unreal uses a Y being the depth and Z being the height, whereas if you were typically working in a 2D environment, you would just be working with X and Y. We would actually end up using X and Z, but the translation between them should be fairly insignificant. So we want to face the camera so that it's not got any rotations, so it's facing straight forward. That hopefully will make it easier moving forwards. And we want to change the camera so it has an orthographic projection mode, and that will stop various sprites, in our case, kind of becoming smaller as they become further away. It almost removes that kind of depth of field, and we have a width, we have clip planes, where things, I guess, get clipped, aspect ratio stuff, and other components, but we don't. Yeah, I have heard. Partly Atomic says that the orthographic camera is messed up. I have read some parts that imply that perhaps it's not going to work 100%. Hopefully it will, at least for what we need it for. I don't think we're really going to utilize a great deal of kind of the 2D aspects that you might want, like lights and proper, I don't know, it's not, it shouldn't be too taxing on a simple orthographic camera. Hopefully that's okay and we can get away with it. Otherwise we might have to go to the perspective one, or make some fixes where possible, but we'll go with it for now, see how it goes. So we need to import our slab piece here, and just move that out of the way. You can close these now. So we take that back into the textures. We still have a couple of odd sprites in here, but we'll clean those up as we go. And one thing that I did read today is each type of component has a color code. We can see our textures are red, our sprites are blue, and or turquoise blue, and our blueprint is blue. It is possible to change the color of the folders. So we can make our textures folder red, and we can make our man folder that turquoise blue. May not be an exact match, but it'll be close enough. And we kind of make our anim, which is green, a green colour. There we go. It actually makes the tree hierarchy look quite neat, but hopefully it'll help us understand what goes in what, particularly if the set of folders become quite large. So we'll take our slab and we'll drop it in, and we know really there's a lot to this texture. There's a lot of blank space that we don't need, but we'll extract the sprite from that, and we'll see if the default sprite extraction process works in this case. If it doesn't, then we will have to do it automatically. Just try that. No, it doesn't seem to handle the green background very well. Maybe there's some options that I need to use, or maybe the padding colour. See if that makes any difference. We know we've got the chroma texture and the chroma colour, so we know we can take that out, which gets rid of all the green. But I don't think that's going to make the extraction of the sprites work any better. Let's give it a go. No, we just end up with a big picture with a sprite in the middle. So what we'll do, just because we know that it works, and it's, at least in this case, it is actually a square, we'll draw the sprite. Go back to the extract sprites option, and we'll just draw the box around it manually. That's not the way we did it before, was it? It was sprites, create sprite, edit source region. I still can't grab the controls. We'll get an approximation and then we'll just zoom in to make sure we've got. Yeah, so we haven't changed the texture group again. One time I'm going to actually remember to do that straight away. Back into here. Change the texture group to 2Ds. That gets rid of the blur. So it's going to give us our solid pixels. I think I saved that. Yep. And back here, let's edit the source region. just make sure the end there and there and there. I think that's actually got it all in one go, as best as I can tell anyway. I think that's okay. So we save that. So now we can drop our sprite into the game. So it seems that when we drop our sprite, the sprite actually comes up on the side rather than facing forwards, despite our camera not having any rotation. So to make, if this is how, and we'll just take the man as well. Yeah, so the man does it as well. Always comes up from the side. So if dropping things always comes up in that direction, it would probably make more sense to rotate the camera by 90 degrees, so that by default the camera is actually going to be looking at things as we drop them in. So just take them out again. Go back to our slab sprite. Drop that in. So once we've aligned things up, so we still want our camera to be about 0, 0. Again, just trying to make sure that we've kind of got a consistent starting point for everything. So now we've got our camera and something in the view. If we start that level, the camera is not the viewing from that camera that we placed, it's viewing from the camera that we were using to view the view space. It's not the right camera. And we then need to change the camera that we use, and we can do that in many of the different blueprints. There doesn't seem to be the right place to put it, there's just places you can put it. So we're going to put it in the level, because we're going to say that it's the level's responsibility to set up how the player views this particular level. And I have to see if I can remember the names. I think it's blend. It's got something to do with blend in there. Which one was it? Might be the context sensitive, so we'll take that off. No, I can't remember what the camera set was. Or blending of shapes. Unfortunately, it would be nice if it was just set camera or set default camera, something like that. That would be cool. But they've called it something else. Okay. Just have to have a quick look. Typing fails. View target with blend. That's what I was looking for. So there was definitely blend in there. I don't know why I wasn't finding it. View target with blend. There we go. So that's what we use to set the camera. And we need a reference to the camera itself. So we select the camera in the 3D space, right click in our area, and reference. Again, this is what I saw them do on the videos, but perhaps they've changed how this works now. But we can take it from there, should be able to drop it in there. Yep. So that's the camera, which is the view target. The target is a player controller. So we just want to get the player controller. And we'll do this on the begin play. Otherwise, I think all the other options are fine. Just try and arrange these. If we just drag that down a bit. Get them in the right order so the little lines don't overlap too much. Now when we run our game, we are actually using that camera that we placed. So we can't move that camera because that camera isn't tied up to our controls. That's fine, we don't need to move it. We can't rotate the camera, again, we don't need to. So that kind of works as we need. And now we're actually in the 3D space. When we play and stop, we're almost in the same place as that camera, which actually got kind of on top of the camera. So we need to position this slab in about the same place within this context. Now our camera has a width in world units, and it's currently set to 512. Let's see what happens if we shrink it down. Yeah, so that makes the view of the camera much smaller. But we know that being an older game, the resolution's fairly limited, and we know that the map is taking up about 1/3 of it. And we can take a print screen and dump that into paint. This will give us the approximate size of the screen, so it's 642 by 427. It's obviously got the window board around there, so we can say that's 640 by probably 420, or maybe 400, 640 by 400, something like that. So we know that we want to change our camera to be about 600. That's about right, wasn't it? No, 640. And then we need to position our slab in about the right place so that it fills the right amount of the screen. Because everything, all the features, all the bits of water, the trees, the buildings, all has to be relative to how big this slab is. So round off a few of those numbers. Oops, -50. Just again to make things a bit easier moving forwards. If we compare that now with our play, so I haven't forgot to select the camera beforehand, so it may look right in this version, but as we can see it looks a bit wrong in there. That's probably because the viewport camera that we kind of drop into is actually in front of where the point is. Kind of want to see it from here, but it's not going to work particularly well, so we have to make sure that the camera is selected so we see it in the right hand corner just before we do it. Try and get this in the right place. We leave the world at 0 actually, and then at 15 we'll just move the camera closer. It's actually not making it any bigger. That may be down to the perspective aspect of it. So just play it again and stop it. Move the camera back some more so they're about even. And we want to make the camera, maybe the width, if we just bring that down, yeah, we can see that's enlarging the picture. So we'll actually put that to 360. And maybe the original texture, yeah, so the original texture, full size, where's the size, there we go, is actually 320. So wherever this slab is from extracted, either it's not the right size or it's just smaller than I thought it was. So we can take an approximate width here. It is about 400 by 350, which perhaps, where's our, if we go to our sprite over here, yeah, our sprite is actually 220 by 173, so it's kind of half the size that the one in game is. So we can either make the camera a bit close, but that might make the other components of the interface a bit cramped, but we can work with it for now and see how it goes. But when we actually start, we seem to have the right kind of ratio between the actual world area and the available space for the minimap. Excuse me. So, we've got the world in about the right place. Now, we've just dropped down the sprite here, and the sprite's obviously got no logic on how to add the features. The features being the bits of coastline around the edge to give it the right look. We can see that this particular selected map sector is the bottom right, so the coastal features are down there, and if we click on this one, the coastal features actually go up and over, so we can kind of see that join part at the bottom, and we need to make sure that that's replicated in our game world. So while we have dropped down the sprite, we are going to need that to be more than just a sprite. So we'll create a new folder within our sprites directory, and we'll call this the map. Not the map may be a bit vague moving forwards, particularly if we've got the mini map, but map will work fine for the time being. And we will also create our blueprint. Now in this case, it's probably just an actor again. Or maybe a scene component. So the map probably doesn't have any collision on its own. We'll go with a scene component for the time being, see how it works out. Not well if we can't drag it into our workspace. It's probably because we're still running. Nope. That was obviously not the right blueprint to use. Go with that. Maybe it's just, yeah, we'll just go with an actor then. We'll give the actor our sprite, and we'll position that actor. So we've got -50 as our position there, so we'll just take out that one, put that one at -50. And the same location. So we need to get rid of the little circle. Oops. We can go minus with that by as much as we can. That should pretty much look the same, but now we've actually got some control over it. So we know there's going to be, I guess, islands within the game where all four sides will need to have the features. And we also know there's going to be variation of that. So firstly we need to import our features. I think we can close the paint now. Like that. Import our features texture, and that gives us all our bits and pieces. We'll change the texture group again, gives us the pixelated look. Save everything. And in the features we have bits of island, we have bits of trees, we have the mining area and some stones. So the stones and the trees obviously is just decor that we can put on our island, and all these blocks with the sea are various parts we have to position around our island, and we will do that in one place. So we'll create our little our map in this case with all the feature parts around it. Another thing that we haven't mentioned is the colour. The colour of this particular sprite is very plain. It's all just basically black and white, almost like a height map. Whereas within the game, it's obviously got colour representing the same colour as the land. So this is kind of the mud environment, maybe desert if that's what they were going for. But then again, it doesn't have deserty trees, does it? So, but they have various colours, and we can see those colours within our mini-map view over here. We can see actually they do have desert, they have grass, they have kind of that mud look, they have snow, they have a darker mud look, they have foresty look, and they have this grey island. But we can see that they don't always have every piece. So they have an island version of the grey look, but they don't appear to have the island version of this dark green. Obviously that they've only created the island pieces they need for the maps that they use. But that's okay, we don't need to worry too much about that as we try and get our map piece done. So unfortunately, again, we know that the sprite extraction is not going to work very well with our features. It does mean that we're going to have to create our sprites manually. I don't think that's the one we wanted. Because even a grid is not going to fit all of the pieces. Some of them are quite long, some of them are some of them are long like that shadow, some of them are high, so we're not going to be able to extract them with a grid, and we are going to have to create the sprites individually. I think we did it, yeah. So we did create sprite, which actually takes us into this area, and then from that we can create all of our individual sprites. So before we click edit source region, which gives us this, and then we use hold down control and drag a rectangle to create the sprite. So get in as close as we can, try and line it up, and then just go for, what happened then? There's throughs over here. That's going to be inconvenient if it does that every time, but I think it probably will. Yeah, so see if taking that out of there makes it a little better. I think that sprite actually runs from end to end. Okay, it's marginally better. Some of these sprites aren't particularly clear, I think. That might be one or two, but we'll go with it. I think maybe that's one. That was clearly messed up one of them there, but we'll tidy them up. Maybe it's that actually. Some of them aren't quite clear on where the borders are. It's obviously not going to work if I'm not consistent with it, but once we've got all the bits and pieces, we can adjust the sprites quite easily within here, and we know that they propagate those changes throughout all their uses, so we actually just need to get them thereabout, and we'll be able to see where they don't fit or where they don't work correctly. And I'll go through and tidy these up straight away either. We're just going to try and approximately get all of them. And obviously that one, because it comes down so far, it could be the whole lot, it could be none. Well, that did not work very well. Spike 14. Hasn't even created them in any order. Delete that from here. Nope. Don't know how to get rid of spike 14. From this context, I don't think I can. So yeah, that could be an entire spike there, or it might be many. It's very difficult to tell. I'm gonna go with that being there, maybe even there. That one, and I think finally there's this one. I'll take that one from up there. So that, it's obviously some of them are completely off. Spike 14 is completely off, but we've got a number of bits and pieces we can use as we need. So we'll close that and we'll find spike 14, because we know spike 14 is of no use to us. Now we've got all the bits and pieces here, we'll put them in our map folder, and we'll just try and recreate this map. We'll put some people down because it's likely the yellow person's going to attack soon, so we'll just try and keep the game running by defending ourselves. So we're going to try and recreate this particular sector, this map area, and then we'll use this one above to get the top part. Because as we can see, the left hand side and the right hand side excuse me, are the same on both these maps. If we flip between them, we can see that they are identical shapes, except for a little bit at the top and probably a little bit at the bottom, but the middle part is actually the same. In this case, that almost the bottom part is almost the same as well. We know that the curve that we have here is actually the curve we already have here, but perhaps not the right way round. This one looks like it may be a mirror of what we actually want. We don't know if we can even flip it round that way. We may have to flip the original texture, or we may have to flip the image before we've imported it. Well, it actually looks like the original texture is actually correct. Is it correct? Use this one, yeah. Kind of saying that the high part of the map is actually more on the right hand side, which is here. So yeah, I think that's right. Okay, so let's go back to our map and just space things out a bit. Don't need that one, don't need that one. Take our map out and our map. So we're just going to take these individual sprite parts and just try and build up this image. But again, just try and squeeze all these windows on the one monitor, so we can see everything in one go. There we go. So we've got kind of a sharp, deep cut in the area around here, which is the same for both of the maps. One of them, this one's obscured by trees, but the shape of it is the same. So hopefully in this list we have it there, so we can take that and position that where we need it. So just going for approximate locations. And what else have we got? For the bottom section, it looks like there's that whole piece there. So we can bring that there. So we've put this particular piece. Let's get the location information visible at -85, and the map itself is at location 0. So we want to just make this. Oh no, that was right. -85. It's the Y and Z. So the Y will bring it closer and further away. We just need it a little bit forward, otherwise there seems to be kind of awkward bleed of the particular things. That might be an element of the poor perspective camera. But if we just have it 1 unit forwards, we guarantee that it's going to look okay. And then the Z is just wherever it makes sense. So again with this one, we're trying to line it. We'll bring it 1 forwards, round those numbers off, and work on the next bit. So we've got a nice curved corner here. It's almost definitely going to have to be this one. Can't think of anywhere else that would have that curve. So we're going to take, oh, getting stuck in that window. Take that curve, move it 1 forward again. Oops. Move it 1 forward, and then move it down to this corner. Aligns itself fairly well. So there looks to be the curve kind of comes straight up, and unfortunately the hover hint gets in the way. This is the first level. It's giving us kind of like the tutorial of what to click where. But the curve comes straight up to get that little peak, that little cliff face even there. That cliff face matches up with our piece of map here, so we can drag that down and slightly to the left. Now we can see that again they're awkwardly overlapping. It shouldn't. We moved our camera. Should not happen. Oh yeah, because we're just in the map, of course. I forgot where we were now. So we're looking at that in the actual game, and that does not work. Perhaps they need to be further forwards. See if that works any better. Now our map pieces are still behind our map. Okay, I see that the way things are all joined up, it's all a bit weird. For some reason, we're looking at completely the wrong side. That does make it a bit more difficult. Somewhere along the line, we've got turned about, and we're almost looking at the back of our map. That's probably why I thought it was all upside down in the first place. But that said, I think it's this view that's wrong. This view is actually looking at the wrong side, because as we said earlier, if we look at this sector, the lump in the map is more on the right than it is on the left. Whereas if we go back to this perspective, press play, it's more on the left than it is on the right. So we're obviously looking at the wrong side of it here. But we haven't rotated this, but we have rotated our camera. And we've rotated our camera by +90. And perhaps the answer is that it should be -90. And our map then should be +50. And I say, where did everything go? -90. Yeah, we forgot to adjust the y-axis, the y value, 0. Check the map again, 50. Move the camera over here, play it again. Okay, so that's better. Everything's now in the right place. Well, at the right place that we left it last time we were throwing things around here. We're actually making each of the feature sprites sub-sprites for the main slab sprite. That means that they all kind of work to the same location. As we could see when we were moving, when the feature sprite, any one of the feature sprites really, is actually on the root. We can get it back onto the root. There we go. If we actually move the slab, the features that are attached to the slab, actually children of, move around with it, even though we can independently move them. But the feature that's not attached to it doesn't move around. So if we have them all under the initial slab, they all move together. So we put the location of everything back to 0, well, everything of the slab, and then we can make sure that all of our features are just 1 in front, and then we can compile that and play it here. So we can see that we're actually building up that shape quite nicely. There's obviously a little bit of incorrect sprite chopping around here, but once we've got all the pieces in place, we can work on trying to improve the individual sprites themselves. Now again, because of the overlapping effect here, we might want to adjust individual things to be above or below each other. Maybe put that one as 3. It kind of removes that pixelated overlapping mess that we get, but because of the camera being orthographic, it doesn't actually affect what we see. It doesn't matter if something's really close. If we stop that, or really far away. So we can, so long as it's in front of, the rendering will put it in the right place. So while in the perspective view, we can see that it's in front, and we can see that it's actually, if we align the camera about in the right place, there we go, we can see that it's actually much bigger and it gets in the way. But when we actually press play, it kind of slots back to where it was. It loses that perspective and renders at the same size. So at least so far as this texture is going to be constructed, the orthographic camera is working okay. Obviously we don't actually want it to be so far in front, but we just want it in front enough so we don't get that awkward overlapping effect within the perspective view. I think we can actually pick the right front. Yeah, so we can make the viewport in here the 2D one as well, which I think might help a little bit. I wonder if that means that if we put everything back to 1, we might not have that awkward overlap. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, there's still a little bit, but actually that seems to have solved the problem, so we'll stick with that. And get the next couple of pieces in. So that looks like the right hand corner. It's kind of like a jigsaw at this point. Just trying to get everything in place, moving forwards. So it does look like there's some misalignment. We can probably move everything over a little bit. We're certainly not going to go for perfect at the moment, because it's going to take some time to get all this aligned, and there's no point going through that with everybody. So just going to drop on all the pieces, and they're all kind of dropping in as parents or children as each other. Again, we can sort that out later on. Just going to try and make so we get all the pieces in place. Now we know that there's various pieces that are going to be used. If we go back to the game, like this top hand corner, that works like that when we're on the higher of the two maps, where we've got the little kind of island section. Don't know really how to describe it, but that little blip of land. Whereas if we're looking at the bottom place, we don't have that blip of land. It just smoothly goes as a line straight up. So there's some cases where this is the little blip, where two pieces actually live in the same space, depending on which view. And it looks perhaps like as we've got those in place now. That's one. It looks though that certain pieces actually seem to fit together fairly well. So that little bit of land comes round there and then joins up to the coast. Again, that seems to be pushing in more than perhaps it does there. But if we go to this one, then it's actually a much sharper corner. So it looks perhaps like that piece. Got this awkward hierarchy going on here. Just drop everything down so they're not all tied up to each other. All of them need to be part of that. There we go. So this piece actually seems to go straight in to that one, and it's actually on the land. But what we'll actually do, once we've got all these pieces in place, we'll tie some of them together within the hierarchy, which hopefully will mean that we can hide kind of the parent, which will hide the children. If that's not the case, we may have to reference each individual part, but that's not too bad. There's only going to be, at a maximum, 17 pieces that we have to manage, and we'll obviously deal with that accordingly. So what other pieces can we drop in place? We definitely need some more on the right hand side. That looks like a big right hand side piece. It's probably going to be most of the right hand side. And that's for this straight edge island. And it's obviously here again. The trees obscure it, so the trees are used very well to try and give the element of different land. Even though the left hand side and the right hand side of this particular sector is almost identical to this one, the trees and the different layout of the trees actually make it feel like a different place. So I definitely try and capture that. So there's another right hand piece there. Don't know if that's the same as what we already have actually. No, this is quite a small piece. So we will have to probably go through a couple of maps within the game to try and join up all the actual pieces to make it all work. We also need to figure out how to make the map itself match the colour. And again, the features, actually what we've done incorrectly here is that the green should be transparent. Making it transparent may actually make it more difficult to work with, but we'll quickly change the main texture. Not in the main texture. Over there. Quickly change the main texture to have that green transparency, and if we jump back to our map, we can see that makes the map look a lot more complete. Starring effect doesn't look so great. Doesn't look quite as good as it does within this game, and that may be perhaps the map quality in this version perhaps is better than the map quality that we've got. Let's say I didn't extract the map parts myself. I found them alongside the other sprites and graphics. I think the other sprites and graphics look fine, but I'm not sold on this one. But we can at least use it until such time as we have a better option. I don't know how we can colour this. Perhaps we can give it a texture or a material, or simply just change the colour. I don't know if we can get that browny colour. If we take another screenshot, and we'll use the dropper. So we go for the light colour to start with. Can we? Edit colours, there we go. 186 and 81. Much more yellow than I was expecting. Oh, no blue. And 17 hue, 240 saturation. Still very yellow. I think just setting all of those colours at the same time hasn't really helped. But yeah, we could probably use GIMP to get those colours a bit more correct. But even if we've got kind of a greeny colour, it does look like the pixelation of this particular map isn't working so well. Maybe another potential idea would be to go back to our texture and our slab and change the texture group to something else. I suppose the text terrain height map ain't going to work. Don't really know what any of the differences are with all of these, but we use the world one. Yeah, so that gives it a much better look. Kind of blurring those pixels actually make this look better. It still doesn't look to be the same quality as this one. The pixels within the map are much more difficult to see. Perhaps that's just because we've made the map too close. Although it seems to fill the same kind of space in the viewport, so definitely some room for improvement there. I do think that the map quality in this case is better than what we have. If we go to the features and the actual trees as well, the tree quality in this case does look better than what we've got here. But that's not going to be an issue at the moment. It looks a whole lot better in this view than it does in this, probably because it's selected. That obviously doesn't help. Unfortunately, clicking in the white space area doesn't actually unselect what we've got, so you have to actually click the root up here. But when we're actually looking at it in this case, it's not too bad. Not as good as it could be, but not too bad. So we've definitely got bits and pieces broken within our individual features, but we can see how that's building up. Once we've got all the bits and pieces in the right place, so we know that this set down here controls whether you're at the bottom of the map, or at a bottom island section, or effectively a top island section where we don't show any of those three things. So we should be able to take them away or put them back dynamically. Now we should just be able to say visible is false or visible is true. So we're going to put them three into a group. Now we can either try and group them under each other, which would be possible, or we can use our paper grouped sprite. So we'll see if that can solve this problem. And we'll take our 3 sprites, drop them into there, and we'll call this, press F1 there, so don't want that, our bottom group, and we'll say that's not visible. Okay, so it hasn't changed the render, and unfortunately it doesn't change the in-game. So changing the visibility of the group doesn't change the visibility of the items within the group. I don't think there is actually another component that we can use. Nothing really stands out as a better container for those. When we search for group, we only actually get the one that we've got now. We could create a blank sprite. Should we try that? It's got no actual source sprite of its own. Take them, drop them in there. Now if we make this one visible, again, it's not changing the children. There doesn't look like there's any way to make that happen, but I'll have to do some research to see if there's a better way to do it. But even then, we should be able to get within the code the children of that particular group. So we'll give that a go. We'll go to the event graph or construction script. We'll go to the event graph, event begin play. We'll drop our group in there, and we'll see if we can get to the children. Child component. Get the attached components. Okay, so get children components. That should return us yeah. So from the bottom group, we can get the children components. We only want the immediate children in this case. We won't kind of put lots of hierarchy in there. And that gives us an array of them. So perhaps we can do use an early access class. So I guess this one isn't actually completed. Hopefully that won't cause any problems. Activated, component hit, overlap, wake, sleep. Doesn't seem to be a event when the component becomes visible or invisible. Deactivated or activated doesn't make any difference. Toggle visibility, get visible, is visible, set visible, but there's no way to know when the visibility changes. So we're going to have to make sure that when we do change the visibility of a particular group set, we change the visibility for the children. So perhaps the easiest way to do that would be to create a function toggle group visibility, and we will have an input of a group. Sprite. So where is it? What did they call it? Paper grouped sprite. Paper grouped. There we go. Sprite component. I think that's the one we wanted. Yep. So that's our input called group. And just jump over here. So we take that, remove that. So we want to get all the children, and we also want to get our group visibility. Well, actually, we could simply say another input. Our first parameter, visible, which is a boolean. So with our group, we'll just set the visibility first on our propagated children. Maybe that's all we need to do. I'll actually switch them around just so that our graph looks a bit neater. Compile. And we'll test that by in our begin play. We'll call our function, toggle group visibility, and we'll pass into that the bottom group, and we'll say it is not visible. Compile that and save, jump over here and run. That hasn't affected our items, and I know why that is. What we actually did was, just close these screens, within our function we said propagate to children is actually the same as the visible value. We don't actually want to connect that, we just want to tick it, because the visible value in this was false, so we weren't propagating it to the children. Hopefully, save that, compile, play, there, excellent. So that has removed the entire bottom section. The same process we can apply, that code is actually so simple that we really don't need to have it in a function. I didn't know that this propagate to children existed. It does actually therefore achieve what we want to achieve. So I'll probably take that out of the function and just handle it in here. We do need to know what map piece it is. Now if we jump back to our original graphics set, our islands, as I said earlier, we can kind of use this, close that, we can use this image as our guide to what kind of pieces we're going to need, but it's fairly safe to say that one way or another we have almost every combination of pure island to pure middle section, top right hand corner, bottom left hand corner, etc. They're probably all represented here. So within our game we need a way of determining which particular section it is. And for that we are going to create an enumeration. Can't create it from up there. Miscellaneous. I think it's in miscellaneous. I think it's a blue one. Under blueprints. There we go. Under blueprints, enumeration. So we're going to call this map type, for want of a better name at this point. And we're going to take that, and within it try and define all of our map types. Like that. So we're going to start with an obvious one of island. We don't really need to describe them at this point. And we're going to have We're going to start at the top left, so we'll have top left, top, top right. So that covers our top. We have a top left here, but we also have a right hand side and a left hand side, and a bottom and a middle and a top. So there's going to be quite a lot of different enumerations. Obviously all of those we're going to have to account for in our map. The piece that we've actually put together vaguely with the code that we've got, just leave that as is. When we ran this, we actually end up with a pretty poor and incomplete version of our middle section. This one, for example, here, this middle section. So what we're going to do is, just to kind of proof of concept, find our enumeration definition again. There it is. We're going to add our middle. And save that. And now we're going to go into our map and create our new switch, and we're going to switch on the map type. So there we've got currently all of the ones that we've currently defined. Do that first. So we know for each different map we're going to have to define different parts. We're going to pre-select it to the middle. That's obviously going to come from this bit, and we know for the middle we want to hide the visibility of the bottom group. Now it's safe to say that once we've got all of the different map type parts and all of the different groups, we may end up with a very large amount of components here. Maybe we'll organize that into different functions, but once we've actually done it, there's not going to be a great deal reason to change it moving forwards. Well, unless we find out that we've done it completely wrong or there's a better way to do it, but oh, I've somehow magically lost in the last few minutes. It's inconvenient, but we know once we've got the basics all put together, it should be a matter of tweaking the images that we have, and the general logic behind visually showing each map shouldn't change. Now, even if we did get a better texture, a better image from the game with high quality star map, high quality land, that again shouldn't make any difference. We'll just recrop all of our sprites using the same logic. So we can verify that this works, so when we compile this and we jump back in here and press play, we should end up with our middle section. And if we jump back over here and we say we call it an island obviously not going to make any difference to our code, but we can jump back in and see that we have it all. So we can go back to our map, our viewport. We obviously have a few pieces of the jigsaw we haven't quite placed yet. Just move them over there. We need the let's get this in the right place again. We need access to anything that goes across the top. So the top section, again we'll just have to quickly jump into a game. Wait for the yellow to go in. So in the top section there is a little bit of jaggedness, which we should be able to find. I think it's somewhat hard to tell because our buildings are in the way of probably the primary feature of that particular part of land, but it's definitely not that one because that's dark down the bottom. I mean, what we probably would want to do is take all of these as is and just drop them straight in. It could be that one. So we'll take that, place that along the top. Yeah, that's just kind of curved off the top section of the map. Don't think that actually is the one we want for this case. That might be the one that we put down the bottom to give the bottom a better shape. Maybe we'll go back to the texture, see if it's more obvious within the texture itself. Yeah, that one there seems to be the one for the top. If we go back here, we can kind of see that peak again. That I keep calling them peaks. I'm looking at it from more of a 2D perspective. We can see that kind of bit just here. The sharper corner over in this corner must come from a different piece, but we can see that that one obviously has the stars along the top. Looks like it's a good choice. So we'll jump back over to our map, which is in this window, and our map sprites. See if we can see that one. Maybe we haven't extracted that one. Edit source regions. So it's sprite 15. It's got to be in there somewhere. 9, 4, 7, there, that one, 15. So we'll take 15. Didn't work. Up here. Position that at the top. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's completely all the way across. We know that that particular piece is still used here. Yeah, so we have this piece in about the right place, and this piece actually joins up to it. So we get that wobbly shape, and then we want kind of the top right hand corner. Could be that one. Maybe we already have that in there. Maybe that one. 13, 12. Yep, we already have that. So that goes over there. And we are missing a bit of gap there, but we'll just join those up. So these three pieces make our top section. When we're in the bottom section, we don't have that kind of little end of the world bit, this bit here, or the big dimple in. So we know that those three pieces that we've currently got selected make up our top group. They're a bit haphazard in our hierarchy, but we're going to add another group. Make sure that's part of the top section. Make this window a bit bigger. Just resize the sections a bit. So we either want that one, and that one to all be under that group, and we'll call this the top group. It's kind of difficult to say exactly how many groups we're going to have. It looks like perhaps we'll have one group to make the top section either joined or not joined, as in these two parts here. But there looks like there's some component to the far left and far right which would change depending on which one it is. But we may be able to do that with just simply overlapping the images, so that when the top group is shown, it will overlap any of the images that would otherwise be shown. It depends obviously on the transparency of those images to how well that works, but we'll see how many groups we need, and obviously the less groups we have, the easier it's going to be to handle the graph. So our middle section needs to hide both the top group and the bottom group. I don't know if we can connect both. No, we certainly can't connect both. So we have to call the toggle group visibility for each group. We'll do top first and then bottom. And we can do a top section. So for the top one, we're kind of saying that this map is the top piece, and therefore we actually want to hide the bottom section and not the top section. Actually, this one needs to be over there. As I say, once we've kind of got more of this in place, we can see about removing some of the duplication we're going to have with it. So we can see at the moment we've set it to the middle, nothing changes. If we go back over to our too many windows open again, back to our map, and we'll set the default value to the top, which is one of the two that we've actually handled. Minimize that and press play. We can see that the bottom section now is removed only. Looks more like our top, not perfect, but more like our top. And again, just to make sure we haven't broken it or anything else hasn't affected it, we can select our middle, file and save, and then run this again, and we can see both the top and the bottom sections are removed. We have obviously incomplete sides, but that kind of proves the premise. It proves all the pieces are in the right place. Well, all the components are in the right place, and there's obviously a lot of time required on making sure the sprites are correctly cut out. This one obviously doesn't look really quite right, or actually maybe the top left, so maybe it is right. But we need to clean up all the sprites. Some of them are fairly obvious where they've gone wrong, where we've got bits that just doesn't align right, or kind of the fact that this has got a jagged top line kind of improves that certain parts have been made transparent because of the green, but we've still got some jaggedy bits. We can obviously edit that as we need to. Actually, that seems to be on the top line, so that may even be correct, but it depends what it lines up with. That's sprite 15, which is actually used for the top. So if we just put this back to an island, we can run that again, and we can see up here we've got a slightly bright patch just there. So if we go back to our texture and our sprites, edit the sprite regions, find sprite 15, there we go, 15 was the one that we were looking at before. So we can see that actually we're a bit too short on the height and a bit too short on the width, but we're also one too high, so we can bring our width down, so up, our dimension to 1 to 4, and our height we just need to make that 96. Oops, 96. Save that. Come back in here, we can see now when we press play we don't have that slightly brighter phase. That's the kind of tweaking that we're going to have to make to all of the different features that we've chopped out. Obviously it's going to be a bit of a time consuming task. I won't stream all of that. I think we've proved all the bits and pieces, all the components, how the kind of general concept is going to work. So I'll spend some time between now and the next stream tidying that up as much as possible. It still may not be perfect, but we're trying to go for kind of a broad working prototype, and we'll clean it up as we go forward. The next stream will probably be on Friday and not tomorrow, and I think that will do for today. So thanks for watching, and hope you drop by again next time.